What is going on, FA Nation? My name is Justin Fensterman, along with James Grande, and with the news swirling regarding this DFS NBA slate, it's time to pick some players, Grande. This has been a crazy last 10 minutes, my man. How the hell are you? You going to keep some of that hair on your head? I was unsuccessful in doing that.
I'm about to join you, Fency. I'm about to just shave it all off, and so I don't have to keep ripping it out, because I don't know, those last 10 minutes have been kind of wild. But honestly, it's been this way since last night, because we got all this news about people sitting questionable Wednesday evening, and it just hasn't stopped throughout the day. And the last 10 minutes have been hectic with the Pistons news coming in and just the Rockets news coming in. It's just, this slate's going to be a hell of a ride from beginning to end. But Fency, no one I'd rather spend this next 22 minutes with. That's all we have to talk about 45 players in the playbook with than you.
Yes, that was, in case you couldn't tell from the context clues, that's James telling me not to go 45 minutes in this stream. So you'll get it. You'll like it, James Grande. Let's talk about some of the players who are out, because I'm going to give Mr. Grande over here about a 5-minute rest. That way I can go over this long list of outs and questionables. And we are going to continue going over any breaking news that comes in the next however many minutes, because if you go from the last 10 minutes, nuts. LeBron James out first game all year with that ankle, so he's out. Freddie Van Vliet is going to be out. Pascal Siakam is also out. OG Anunoby is also out. Malik Beasley is still out. Tyrese Halliburton is out. DeLon Wright is out. Josh Jackson, which just came in, he is sick, so he is going to be out. D'Angelo Russell is still out. Devontae Graham is out. Cam Reddish is out. Hassan Whiteside is out. Marc Gasol is out. Hamidou Diallo is still out. Jeff Green is out. David Nwaba is out. James Ennis is out. Who else from the Nets is out? James Grande?
TLC.
He's definitely out. Eric Gordon is also out. Daniel House Jr. is out. Lowry Markkanen, who was actually listed as doubtful, which is a good sign down the road, but then he was ruled out. Then we've got other players who have not been ruled out yet. Luka Doncic, he's doubtful with a back injury. Domantas Sabonis is questionable with an ankle injury. Clint Capella is questionable with a foot injury. Jeremy Grant, he's officially out, James, or is he still doubtful the last week?
He was downgraded to doubtful.
Yes, he was recently downgraded to doubtful. Still don't know the full status with him. Kelly Oubre Jr. is questionable with a wrist injury. Evan Fournier is questionable with a injured groin. Buddy Hield is questionable with an ankle injury. Kyle Kuzma is questionable with an injured heel. Cody Zeller is questionable with a hip injury. Doug McDermott has a face injury, and he is questionable. Jeremy Lamb also questionable, though the coaches think he'll play. Alex Caruso questionable with a neck injury. Taurean Prince is available. That was just updated. And then also upgraded Gordon Hayward to probable. That happened earlier. And then Tobias Harris, who was questionable, now probable. So that's pretty much half the slate, Grande.
I honestly, I don't know who you didn't mention.
I know, seriously. And oh, by the way, just got an update regarding Doug McDermott, likely to play according to reports. So likely to play. So take that as you want for now. But
He's not very, very likely, Fensty? Very
in there. I would have felt a little bit more comfortable. But very likely, we'll see. Okay, we'll see. We've been told more assuring phrases before, and then the player's out. So welcome to the NBA. For now, let's talk about high-priced point guards, because, James, this normally doesn't happen, but you're on the playbook and you're on the stream. So this is going inside your mind here, especially with all this breaking news rating on top of your head. So when it comes to point guards at this rate, before we lose anybody else off this slate, who are you prioritizing when it comes to paying up for the position?
So I think it's, there's 4 guys on DraftKings over 9K, not including Luka Doncic, who's currently listed as doubtful. We obviously expect him not to play. And I think of all of them, Steph Curry stands out the most to me. And I'm actually surprised the masses don't have the same sentiments that I'm thinking as well. And I know you and John as well love Steph Curry. But, let's face it. Like, he's gone incredibly nuts against the Trailblazers this year. He's averaging 46 points, 60 fantasy points against them. And Portland is a terrible defensive team. If Kelly Oubre, who is questionable, happens to sit, Curry gets a massive 4.5% usage bump just to add the cherry on top there, Fensty, and then averaging 1.7 fantasy points per minute without Oubre. So it's very hard for me not to prioritize Curry. I think a contrarian option is to go Trae Young, who, gets Orlando off of 3 bad games in a row. But Orlando has been a gold mine for point guards, and they rank 29th against the position. So a definitely contrarian route is to go Trae Young. I think LaMelo Ball for the rest of the year is going to garner ownership, whether he's priced at 11,000, 9,000, it doesn't matter. He has triple-double upside, and people love LaMelo Ball. And then Dame, not to disrespect Dame like everyone else, or seemingly the whole world disrespects
Okay, thanks,
Dame.
LeBron. Thank you, LeBron James.
Right. Right. Dame is obviously firmly in play. Just, I don't love 10-6 on DraftKings. I know he's been giving us consistent 50 plus.
Not look who's on the other side of him, like you mentioned before. I can't pay that much more. I mean, it's not that much more on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, I'm not going to bump up that much. This matchup's going to be gold either way, so why not go with Curry, who, by the way, I have a feeling people might be a little bit sour if you look at the shooting numbers over his last few games, but don't let that deceive you because the Warriors have had comfortable leads. I don't think that's happening tonight. I think Portland, at least from the guard standpoint with Damian Lillard, like I said in the starting 5 video, I think you're going to be seeing quite a show between these two.
Yeah, I'm excited, and no coincidence this game features a 233 Vegas total, and I don't know if that's moved since the 20 minutes ago. The last time I looked, no, 233.5. So there's going to be a lot of points here, and I'm looking forward to it. But Curry up here at the top stands out the most.
You looking forward to more injury news, Mr. Grande? Because going back to the injury front here, Jeremy Lamb, even though we got the murky status update now, questionable, so we got something there. And now Domantas Sabonis, game time decision, which we absolutely cannot stand to see. So we would just give us something already. Give us something. And by the way, something else I saw regarding the Houston Rockets tonight, the following players, they've got 8 available guys: John Wall, Oladipo, Tate, Tucker, Patton, Jones, Brown, and McLemore. That's what we're seeing on reports right now when it comes to availability. So if for some reason any of these guys are out, this game's done.
Yeah, that kind of makes me worried in cash. That's some worrisome stuff, and it's 7:30, so we should know early. But I think I would pull the plug here in cash games. Especially with the way the season. Hey, like last night we saw Derrick Rose get scratched over an inconclusive test, right? And that happened 20 minutes before lock. If that happens, or post lock rather, if that happens tonight with Houston, that game is done. And all your lineups are as well. So I think you can still play him in tournaments because you don't want a full fade Harden, and I think there's some good value. But it is definitely concerning with where we are in the world with how things are being approached. Jeremy Grant officially listed as out as of right now.
Wow. So there's going to be some serious value in Detroit tonight. I almost want to see a list and make sure that they're going to be able to get a full roster together or 8 guys together to be able to play. But that's some news that just came out. Let's continue going back to the point guard circle back there, because now we're going to be looking at higher priced guys as some of these other studs get ruled out. So when we're looking at value for the position, who do you like?
So Kyle Lowry just stands out in the mid-tier for cash, for tournaments. Obviously, the 3 key pieces of the Toronto offense are not there. So Lowry is going to be a priority. He's going to have the ball in his hands the entire game. I think he's going to be very chalky, very popular, but it's viable, cash, tournaments, whatever. Same with LaMelo or Lonzo and Kobe White matching up against one another. One of the best game environments on the board. I think both are in play. Both are tournament options. Love to see Kobe White shooting more. Love to see Lonzo Ball shooting so well, Fensty. 40% on the year from 3 is a pretty good I mean, it's pretty cool to see because
Honestly,
he was labeled as
from the amount that he got picked on over the last few years, yep. I'd say he's shoving it right back into doubters' faces. I'll take 40% from 3.
I will too. For anybody. I mean, that's elite level stuff. And then Dennis Schroeder, I think, is going to be chalk too. And I shouldn't say I think. I know he's going to be chalk. No Anthony Davis, no LeBron James, possibly no Kyle Kuzma, no Marc Gasol.
And I think if I could stop you there, no Marc Gasol is key for someone like Schroeder because now all the assists are his.
Right. And it's a good point because Marc Gasol is one of the best passing big men in the NBA. Has been, I think, to a lesser extent with this Lakers team because there's that guy with the last name of James there. But I think without LeBron, Gasol could have thrived in this offense. But, no Gasol leads to Schroeder. And then, Fency, I'm very obviously intrigued by Jalen Brunson, who, is going to be the primary option in Dallas with at least the ball handling option. And then Dennis Smith, who was garnering no ownership before this news broke of Josh Jackson and Jeremy Grant being out. How do we not just consider Dennis Smith to almost be a play in all formats? He's looked really, really good over these last few games.
It's good because here's the thing. Toronto missing players, there's going to be a lot of fatigue there. So even with now Detroit with their issues, Dennis Smith Jr. is going to have a ton of room. He's going to have a long leash. And even if he does stupid Dennis Smith Jr. things, they need him to bring up the ball at this point. And going up against Toronto here, I love the price point, especially on DraftKings sub 5K. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that is crucial. And I want to just circle back to your stupid Dennis Smith points. Maybe there is a change in the way that he's handling himself, and that's why we're seeing the extended minutes. 0 turnovers in the last 3 games. Just last point I want to make in Dennis Smith. Turnover-free basketball in 3 straight games. I think that's a massive step in the right direction.
Yes, and with that price point, you have to love it. Let's move on to shooting guards here because we know we're watching this Brooklyn-Houston game, but James Harden in this spot, and he's very, very expensive. So you said in cash, you may want to be careful, but in tournaments, you're all set. You're ready to pay $11K. We have so much value on this board now.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's going back to Houston, right? I think that's emotional from, how his relationship with Houston, bloomed. And I think he is going to look to show out if this game plays. It's just ultimately one, will it stay close because Houston has 8 guys you mentioned. I mean, they have 1, 2, 3 guards, 4 guards. And 2, does it ultimately even play? Because Houston has 8 guys with an hour and 40 minutes before lock. You never know what's going to happen. So if it plays, I'm definitely interested in Harden. I think we need to take a step back a little bit, though, with our exposure, just based on the way that this is trending in the wrong direction. But if it plays, Harden's elite, no problem spending up because you mentioned there's so much value. You can comfortably fit Harden into your lineup along with some other studs. You could probably fit him and Curry and still be comfortable with the rest of your build.
I don't mind the pivot to Zach LaVine either. I mean, I think the Pelicans are garbage defensively. And Zach LaVine, at least until Lauri Markkanen is playing full minutes again, because soon enough we're going to start to see him getting back into that mix. But until that happens, all systems a go on this guy when the matchup presents itself. And still with both of these teams, the pace should be, I think, somewhat quick tonight. Yep. So why not pivot at this point in cash onto LaVine?
Yeah, and LaVine went for 46 actual against the Pelicans earlier in the year
They really suck, man.
Yeah,
the beginning of the year, the first few weeks, defensively, they were staunch. And then I don't know what happened. I don't know what the breakdown was, but after those first few weeks, they haven't been the same since.
Yeah, they are bad. 29th in defensive rating as a team, and that's right behind the Kings. So right in front of the Kings rather. So, and you know how much we like to crap on the Kings defensively. So yeah, not good territory, not good company to be in.
Any other value shooting guards that you like before we move on to the wings?
Colin Sexton, Victor Oladipo, I think in the mid tier. Obviously I lean Sexton now, just with everything kind of in the air, considering like what's happening in Houston and so Oladipo, Tormund's only. I like the sauce, Fancy. I like the sauce more if Fournier sits.
Oh hell yeah!
$5,500 over on FanDuel is a little too cheap considering the production, and he's rolling. And on DraftKings he's given us 30 or more fantasy points in 7 of 10. I think Eric Bledsoe could be a little sneaky. He's been better lately. 29 or more fantasy points in 3 of 4, or in 3 straight. I don't care about his defense when it comes to fantasy production because he's sucked defensively, but he's been productive offensively in terms of fantasy production. And then I'm going with my boy Talon Horton-Tucker tonight. Scored 16 actual last night in 18 minutes, and that was with LeBron. Now there's no LeBron. If the Lakers don't keep it close, Talon Horton-Tucker is going to play minutes. If the Lakers keep, if THT can keep it close,
he's dynamite.
He could be dynamite tonight, and I think the ownership kind of alludes to that, especially on DraftKings where he's only 34. I'm gonna eat that chalk. And didn't we just made this point about the Pelicans being in company with the Kings defense? Like, if Horton-Tucker gets going against this Kings defense, I mean, he could score 20 actual, and it really wouldn't surprise me at all.
Let's move on to the threes here, because someone that I'm going to be starting a lot, one of my favorites tonight, and it's natural because they're, like you said, 3 core pieces of the Raptors out. Stormin' Norman Powell, man, he can play 3 positions, and that is going to benefit him a ton in this matchup tonight. I don't even care, blowout or not, which I don't think it's going to be, but I don't care. To me, this price point is just too good to pass up in this slate.
I guess my question, like, just to turn that around to you, what makes you believe Detroit could keep this game competitive?
It's more
and I guess this is for anyone that, like, is interested in the Kyle Lowrys and the Norm Powells and the Chris Bouchers of the world, because we're not paying like $4,000, like we're paying over $6,000. So like I'm seriously interested, because I am, since this stream has started, because we got the Jeremy Grant news and the Josh Jackson news kind of like right before we hopped on air, I've been toying in my head like, how does Detroit keep this close? Can Svi Mykhailiuk and Sekou Doumbouya and Sadiq Bey, all playing on the court together for 30 plus minutes, keep an NBA game competitive? And I don't know if they can. Even
with the pieces that the Raptors have out?
I mean, they still have
Normally I wouldn't mess with this if those guys were in, or even 1 or 2 of them. But we're talking about their heavy hitters in Van Vliet and Siakam. Not to mention another one, OG Anunoby, who would also stop the possessions on the other side. So I just think especially you talk about someone like Dennis Smith Jr., I think it's going to be a lot more run and gun, personally.
I agree about the pieces in Toronto missing, but you're also then taking Detroit's only pieces off the floor. And now you're like, at least when you take these guys off for Toronto, there is still the Norman Powells of the world. There is still the Chris Bouchers who should be playing more. There is still the Kyle Lowrys of the world who, at the end of the day, is their commander-in-chief, right? I mean, the engine runs with Kyle Lowry. So that's my worry. I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking it a little too much, and you know the Vegas line only says 7 still, so it's only moved to 7. So maybe you're right. I'm just having a hard time. I still love Norman Powell. I'm just like, do I want to play him in cash games? Do I think Norman Powell is out after 3 quarters? Questions I am still myself answering.
And these are very good questions. We're talking about Detroit. We're talking about one of the most pathetic teams we've seen in a very long time. when it comes to the NBA standpoint. We talk about them like we're gods because we're in the DFS world. And, hey, no team goes unturned. Someone's got to produce. And if that's Jeremy Grant and guys like Sadiq Bey and Dennis Smith Jr. night in, night out, that's where we're going to find our value. And we have, especially when Jeremy Grant's healthy and in that mid-7K price point here. Any other small forwards before we move on to the bigs?
I like Harrison Barnes in recent form, especially if Buddy Hield were to sit. I think Josh Richardson is kind of going overlooked. I think everyone's going to veer towards Tim Hardaway, and I think, the usage rate suggests Tim Hardaway is the guy, but we've seen Tim Hardaway just kill your lineups going 2 for 12 on a given night.
It's terrible feeling.
And Josh Richardson is more sound in other categories, so I would lean Richardson. And then I think the Detroit guys, if you do believe that this game, even if you don't believe this game can stay close, you have to believe just based on necessity and able body, Sadiq Bey and Svi Mykhailiuk are both viable options.
Sadiq Bey needs the reps.
And Dwayne Casey has been pretty adamant in defending Svi Mykhailiuk and talking about how well he's played this year. And he's even started a couple games recently ahead of Wayne Ellington, and they liked Josh Jackson off the bench. So when, guarantees Svi was going to start again tonight, whether Jeremy Grant was in or out, Jackson was going to come off the bench if he was active. So I think Bey and Mykhailiuk are both viable options. Svi both for DraftKings and FanDuel. I prefer Bey on FanDuel where he's only 51. I don't love the 57 price tag, but I guess out of necessity, right?
Right.
He's going to take a lot of shots tonight.
Few injury news to update you, Grande. Tobias Harris will play, according to reports. And David Nwaba, who we already said was out, is actually going to be missing the next 6 weeks of action. He's having surgery on his wrist. So that is how we're going to be looking at Houston moving forward. But let's move on to the fours, because you might be able to talk me out of Norman Powell, but you have absolutely no shot at talking me out of Zion. Do it. Bring it. Talk me out of Zion. Do it.
So I won't talk you out of Zion because he's in my playbook, right? So I like Zion, but I prefer Kristaps Porzingis in tournaments.
I understand that.
So here's my logic. Zion, I think, is very safe. I think there is an extremely safe floor with Zion. We're getting 45 fantasy points every single night. We're getting double-doubles now. He's giving us 5+ assists a night, and that's great. But Porzingis going up against OKC, he's $1,000 cheaper. I think that there is probably more upside there. He's averaging 32% usage without Luka. And again, if Porzingis and Zion were to score the exact same fantasy points tonight, let's say they both put up 50. If I play Porzingis and you play Zion, I am winning based on return on investment, right? And I think they both can go for 50, and that's the problem where I'm having with Zion in tournaments. I can just save the money that I need to save tonight because this slate is so big, and I think that we're going to be trying to jam the Currys and the Hardens into our lineups and some other high price options that I want the $1,000, $1,100 that I can save for the same ceiling, essentially, for a guy who's number one, as opposed to Zion, who is the number one option. He has overthrown Brandon Ingram, but there's still Brandon Ingram looming. There is no Brandon Ingram alongside Kristaps Porzingis tonight. Right. So I'm not going to talk you out of Zion. I'm just leaning Porzingis in tournaments. And if you want to play Zion in cash, by all means, you pencil in 45 to 50 right now. And you don't need to check until later. But that's where my head at with the two in tournaments, at least.
So, and I'm expecting you and I are in the same ballpark here, because that, when I put him in the starting five, that's what I was expecting too, the steady Eddie 45 to 50. And I know we want more. I know we want to get greedy, but you're right. Porzingis is, especially on FanDuel sub AK, very hard to pass up, especially with Luka hurt. Other guys that you can look at, Draymond Green, again, No points. You're not focusing on the points. You're focusing on everything else, especially the dimes and the boards going up against Portland. Do you worry at all about Covington closing down his lane at all, or you going all in still on Draymond Green in mid 7K price point?
0%, because I'm not worried about Draymond. We're getting near double doubles from Draymond without points, so I don't need to worry about anything to do with scoring. And I get like
what about Covington?
I like Covington, and he is at the bottom of this list. Very, very inconsistent. Definitely a tournament play only, because he can sink your lineups, but he can also win you a tournament. So like, if his shot is falling, great 3-and-D guy. Do I prefer other guys at like similar price points? Like Chris Boucher, I think, is going to be very popular. Like, is this finally the Chris Boucher game that everyone's out? Like,
ask me that. Don't put that on me, James.
Fancy, this is the question that everyone in this industry has asked all day long and will ask until tip-off and biting our nails to figure out whether it's true or not. I like Marvin Bagley quite a bit. We saw 34 minutes out of him the last time out. 30 in the last 2 of 4. We've seen 50-point upside at the same token. And I love 6,900 John Collins if Clint Capella's out. John Collins, with Clint Capella off the floor this year, gets a 10% usage bump. And that's also including Reddish and DeAndre Hunter, who are both out. But 10% usage bump and averages just a smidge under 1.4 fantasy points per minute. And he gets Orlando, who's starting Al-Farouq Aminu, who's going to throw Chuma Kuke at him. I mean, it is a tasty matchup for Collins.
You expect the game to be close.
I think that this game can be controlled by Nikola Vucevic, which has been the case for a lot of the Orlando games, and they can keep it close enough, because I also don't think Atlanta is very good. I mean, they fired their head coach for a reason, right?
Right.
So,
well, they don't even get into that with me, because they shouldn't have. Lloyd Pierce should not have been fired.
Oh, I completely agree.
That was a total BS firing, number one. But the reason I bring up usage, by the way, you're throwing usage at me. I just want to say, going back to Norman Powell, with the 3 other core pieces off the floor, that's over a 9% usage bump, making over 33% usage. So I have to ask you still, because we know Atlanta can put up points, and Orlando, especially if Fournier sits, I'm worried about this game staying close.
I mean, it's a 2-point spread in Vegas, and that's actually gotten closer. It opened at 4. It's now down to 2. So I'm
wrong.
I mean, I don't – in Orlando, like, I don't think that spread is too far off. Like, we're talking about, yes, the Hawks, did they beat the Heat? Sure. But they beat the Heat team without Jimmy Butler. I guess the only concern would be if Evan Fournier sits, can Orlando keep it close? I just don't think Atlanta, who has 16 wins on the year, 15 wins on the year.
Didn't they just kick Boston's ass about a week and a half ago?
Is that saying a lot? Boston's 1 game over 500 this year.
Okay, but you're throwing wins, and they're still a 500 team, correct?
Who? Boston?
Yes.
Yes, they are 1 game over 500.
Right. And didn't Atlanta kick their ass about a week ago? A week and a half ago? Sometime.
They also lost to the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Okay, so I'm very interested if this game stays close, if Evan Fournier sits. I'm just going to keep saying that.
I don't disagree, but like, I don't think like a team that has lost to recently, they lost to Cleveland, they've lost to who else? The Cleveland and the Thunder in the last 6 games. Like, that's is that like something
I thought you called them the Thunder for a minute, like Lawrence Funderburk back in the day.
Oh,
remember
God.
him?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to centers quickly. Spend a few minutes on the big men, because Towns going up against Charlotte is obviously the high-priced option, but are there other options that you prefer that are way cheaper, Grande? Because obviously the matchup speaks for itself. Wish it was a little bit more rich with production a few weeks ago when he last played Charlotte, but I'm still fine with paying up. However, with the injuries, we got to be looking to spend up on guards. So if we're looking to spend down on big men, who are some
I like Plum Dog if this game can stay competitive. The minutes that I think we're looking at, like, that are concerned about the last two games, blowouts, foul trouble the last two games. So we really shouldn't worry there. I love Rashawn Holmes for tournaments. I think he's going to torch the Lakers, who just aren't going to be able to match his size and athleticism at center. I mean, Montrezl Harrell is going to be a 6'6" center trying to guard him, and that's just I could see Holmes getting somewhere close to 20 rebounds tonight. DeAndre Jordan and Justin Patton would be other two centers that I'd be intrigued in tournaments. But again, both those guys are a little scarier now that we know that game is one player away from being canceled. So
in case you, by the way, just tuning in here, Brooklyn, Houston. Houston has 8 available players right now. So we're waiting to see if anybody else is out. This game's done. So for that, James Grande, you can give him a follow at @the_real_grande on Twitter. You can give me a follow at FenceD Sports. Get in the chat. Keep any kind of news reports that we got on the site open, because this is going to continue to change. Yep. Still a lot of players up in the air, but we're going to get it done. We're going to get that victory, 10 games to dominate. Let's do it. Let's win.